And you are back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. So I'm recording this during the day today. Usually I do it at night, but I've got a gig tonight and I want to hang out after the gig. I want to have some fucking fun for the first time in 9 months. So I haven't made my comeback yet. It's tonight. I haven't been paying attention to the news at all because I've been keeping my phone off. I haven't been turning it on till the afternoon for the last 3 days. And by the time I turn it on, I really don't give a fuck about the news. All I want is a little fucking hit of social media likes or some messages saying I'm the greatest. I don't care about the world by then. And I haven't been paying attention to the news also because I'm trying to live a fucking life here. How much news do I need? If something bad's really happening, all I need to do is look out the window and see Chinese jets flying past. And if that happens, I'm really going to have to fucking dig deep into the memory and try and remember a word or two from that one semester I did Mandarin. Because I was paranoid China was going to take over the world. How paranoid am I now, cunts that didn't believe me 10 years ago? Ni hao. Ni hao ma. Wo hen hao David. David is David in Chinese. Mandarin. They used to annoy the fuck out of me in class as well. The bitch was always like, David. I'm like, who? I'm like, just use a fucking V. We're not even speaking Chinese now. We're speaking in English. So I haven't been paying attention to the news, but I've been getting some fucking messages saying Donald Trump isn't conceding the election, which is a huge surprise. Everyone's like, there's no evidence of voter fraud. I'm like, the only evidence Donald Trump needs of voter fraud is that he didn't win. How do you know there was voter fraud, Donald? I didn't win, that's how. I've got 90 million Twitter followers and I didn't win. That's how I know. Look at the likes I'm getting on some of these fucking tweets, baby. Who did he fire as Secretary of Defense or something who refused to use the military against the Black Lives Matter protests? And now he's hiring someone who will use the military. It's not good for Australia if the US descends into civil war. The US is pretty much our only protection down here. Our only legitimate protection. Who else is going to protect us? Great Britain? Like, don't get me wrong, the Brits can fucking brawl. But we're talking about China here, baby. And if I was an emerging superpower like China, and I saw a little unprotected country over there called Australia, that is already like 38% Chinese anyway, and that country has just about all the resources you need to stay afloat for the next 100 years, I'd be like, hey, Australia, we're coming over. We're going to come visit now. Antifa and the Proud Boys are at war with each other. Imagine they word the two sides of a civil war. Antifa and the Proud Boys. And you have to read those names in the history books later. The Proud Boys. That's the gayest name I've ever heard. Anyway, we just got to watch and see what happens. See how this all plays out. Okay, so moving right along. It's Boyle Breaks History today. It's actually my new favourite segment because I'm starting to learn some shit that I really was very ignorant about my entire life. Pretty much every topic I've chosen so far is something I've always been interested in and known nothing about. And today is no exception. Today in Boyle Breaks History, we are taking down the Berlin Wall. Well, we're not taking it down. We are looking at what the fuck it was because I seriously had no fucking idea what it was. I knew there was a wall and I assumed it was in Berlin. That's all I knew. I didn't know how long it was. I didn't know what it was dividing. I didn't know anything. So it was very nice filling in that ignorant blind spot. That's one down, billions to go. So this is how the Berlin Wall went down. I don't mean came down, I mean it went down like this. So after the war, Germany was divided up amongst the winners, the Allies, which I didn't know that either. I thought Germany was just a country afterwards. But that doesn't make sense. You don't just let the fucking Germans go at it again. You fucking divide those cunts up. You don't just get rid of Hitler and then throw them back the keys. You keep a fucking eye on those krauts. So after World War II, Germany was divided into 4 sections. East Germany, pretty much all of East Germany went to Russia. And West Germany was divided between the USA, England, and France. I don't know how France got their fucking grubby hands on Germany. Who cut them in? They fucking surrendered straight away. Hitler rolled into Paris and he's like, is this Germany? And the French were like, oui. And they took the French flag down off the Eiffel Tower and put the Nazi flag up. That's how much it took. They just asked a question, and France surrendered. But somehow they got cut in on this fucking Germany divide. So the whole of Germany was divided 4 ways like that. And then Berlin itself, Little Berlin, which is smack bang in the middle of East Germany, Russian territory. Berlin was divided in the same way. East Berlin was taken by the Russians, and the west of Berlin was divided amongst the French, US, and the English. So at the start, it was all right. You could just go in between East Germany and West Germany. It was fucking fine. And then the fucking Russians, the sly dogs, cut off all supplies, food and water, transport, everything to West Berlin. Their plan was to kick the fucking Westerners out of West Berlin, take over West Berlin, and then eventually take over West Germany and have Germany all to themselves. So after this, the Allies combined, US, England, and France, combined their territories together to create one conglomerate. And after the bullshit the Russians pulled, a border was put in place separating West and East Germany. So after that conflict, they made it harder to cross the border from East to West. West to East, they could go whenever they wanted. East to West was more of a problem. Going from communism to capitalism was more of a problem. Because once those borders shut, people started fleeing East Germany. I think like 5 million East Germans fled over into West Germany. And it wasn't the shit-kicking McDonald's workers either. It was doctors, engineers, lawyers, teachers, the intelligentsia. They all fled over to West Germany, and this was causing a fucking problem. So East Germany kept on making it harder and harder for their citizens to cross over to West Germany. And conditions on the communist side were pretty fucked up compared to the West side. On the capitalist side, the West side, there was like strip bars and fast cars. On the communist side in East Germany, there was like an old lady with a saggy tit out and a donkey. It was fucked. Berlin was different though. East and West Berliners were able to cross the border between East and West Berlin whenever they felt like it. They could just roll. And that was until Sunday, August the 13th, 1961, when the Russian army rolled into Berlin and started building a fucking wall around West Berlin. They built a fucking wall around the entire West Berlin. The communists were building that wall. See, there's walls on both sides. On the capitalist side, they built a wall to keep people out, and on the communist side, they built a wall to keep people in. So really, there was this tiny little Western enclave in the middle of all communist East Germany, and they had to build a wall, a fucking 4 meter high, 1 meter thick, reinforced concrete wall around the entire West Berlin so the people of East Berlin wouldn't go over to the West. That's how fucking bad it was in the East. And that didn't stop cunts either. People were constantly trying to jump the wall. It was 140 kilometers long with 160 guard towers. They had shoot to kill orders. There was actually 2 walls. There was a perimeter wall, and then there was 500 meters to the next wall. And the area between those 2 walls was called the death strip. There was like guard dogs, nails, fucking all sorts of shit in there. I think landmines were in there. And once you dodged all that, you would come to the big wall. It must have been so fucking depressing being in East Berlin, because all you needed to do was go up to like the 3rd floor of a building and look over at West Berlin, and they're just partying. They're doing pills, they're having weird sex, and you look around your neighborhood, and all you've got is a little bit of dried up corn. And the wall stayed up for almost 3 decades. Berlin was split in 2 for almost 3 decades. That's fucking wild. I legitimately did not know any of this shit. And so that's a little bit of the story of the Berlin Wall. And that is Boyle Breaks History for this week. If you're enjoying the podcast, give it a share around, and I'll see you the fuck later.